Billions of people will lose their minds this World Cup. They'll cry, they'll scream, they'll call in sick to work. And you'll feel nothing. Not sad, not broken, just nothing. And somehow you're the weird one. But what if the psychology actually proves the opposite? What if not caring about the World Cup is a sign your brain is working exactly as it should? Non-direction 1. The science of we won when you didn't play. Here's something nobody talks about. When your country scores, you didn't score. A stranger did. On a field you've never visited. In a country you maybe flew over once. But your brain? Your brain registers it like a personal achievement. Psychologists call this Berg, basking in reflected glory. Robert Cialdini proved it in 1976. Students wore their university's jersey significantly more after a win than after a loss. They didn't play. They didn't coach. Some didn't even watch, but the proximity to victory felt like ownership of victory. Notice something else. When the team wins, V won. When the team loses, V played terribly. Your ego is not loyal, it's just opportunistic. Monorection 2. Why your brain gets addicted to a match. Let's get inside the brain of a hardcore fan during a penalty shootout. Their heart rate is elevated, palms sweating, completely locked in. Why? Because uncertainty is neurologically addictive. The reward system doesn't just fire when something good happens. It fires in anticipation of whether it will. Neuroscientists call this intermittent reinforcement. It's the same mechanism that makes slot machines impossible to walk away from. You don't know if the next spin pays, so your brain stays hooked, waiting, unable to leave. A 90th minute winner. A penalty saved. A goal that arrives just when you accepted a draw. That's not just sport. That's behavioral compulsion wearing a jersey. But here's the critical point. The hook only works if you're already attached. No attachment to either team. The uncertainty doesn't feel thrilling. It feels like watching a coin flip for 90 minutes. Monorection 3. Why the World Cup hits different, and why it doesn't for some regular league football is one thing, but the World Cup adds a layer that makes it either more powerful or completely alien depending on who you are. Now it's not just a team, it's your flag, your nation, your collective identity made physical by 11 strangers. For some people, that amplification works. National pride gives the attachment a bigger surface area. For others, the logic completely breaks down. You didn't choose where you were born. You've spent years forming a complicated relationship with your country, and now you're supposed to feel personally victorious because someone from that same postcode kicked a ball into a net? The emotional math doesn't land. Research on social identity confirms this. The more deeply you tie your self-concept to a group, the more that group's wins and losses feel personal. If that group never grabbed you, the results never will either. Donerection 4. The truth nobody tells fans or non-fans. Here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable for everyone. This version of sports fandom, deep emotional attachment to strangers performing athletically on a screen, is historically brand new. For most of human history, you couldn't follow a team. You couldn't even really conceive of one. Researchers Horton and Wohl noted in the 1950s that television was creating entirely new categories of one-sided emotional relationships, something with no historical precedent whatsoever. So when people describe football fandom as some ancient, hardwired tribal instinct, the underlying tribalism is real, yes, but the jerseys, the face paint, feeling personally bereaved when strangers lose a match you watched alone in your kitchen, that's a product of the 20th century, not prehistory. The person sitting unbothered through a World Cup final might actually be closer to how humans were originally built to respond. That's not a hot take. It's just a strange thing to sit with. Monorection 5. So if you don't care, where did your brain go? Here's what the psychology actually says about people who feel nothing during the World Cup. Sports fandom at its core is scaffolding. It provides belonging, tribal identity, shared meaning, a reason to feel connected to something bigger than yourself. That drive doesn't disappear in people who don't follow sport. You've just built that scaffolding somewhere else. A creative community, a subculture, a career you're quietly obsessed with, a friend group where you feel genuinely known, rather than performing enthusiasm for a team you inherited because your dad liked them. And to be fair, the research backs fans too. Highly identified supporters show real gains in self-esteem, lower loneliness, and a genuine sense of shared meaning that functions like a social lifeline for millions of people. That's not nothing, that's real. But the distinction that matters in both directions is this identity that actually fits versus identity you're borrowing because the room expects it. The fan who genuinely lights up when their country scores, they're getting something real. The person next to them faking grief they don't feel because opting out seems socially costly. They're just exhausted. Dear Meals. Closing. The real point apathy is indifference to everything. This isn't apathy. This is something more specific. A signal that your attachment system has already found somewhere else to be. Your brain isn't wired wrong, it's just elsewhere. And if you know exactly where, if you have a thing, a people, a world you actually light up about, that's the whole point. That's what the fandom was always trying to do. The World Cup is just one road to that feeling. You already found a different one.